What does Sweden and Finland know that we apparently don't? Because that is a question that we should seriously be asking, as Sweden has just sent out 5.2 million pamphlets warning their people to prepare for war. Finland is doing likewise, as we see the shock and awe situation over in Ukraine and Russia looking like it's going to go take the conflict up to an 11 now. The rhetoric is off the scale, and we're going to be seeing possibly a shock and awe strike from Ukraine against Russian targets inside Russia using NATO weapons. And there could be a significant and there could be an unprecedented response from Russia in the coming days. We got a lot to talk about. We got large missile strikes across Ukraine. Russia is not playing around. Just as we're going into winter, we have a major internet undersea cable that has just gone offline that we need to talk about, just as we've been hearing warnings going back and forth from Russia to the United States about each other potentially sabotaging undersea cables. And we got nuclear power plants going offline all across Ukraine. We got a lot to talk about, friends. We want to keep you up to date on what's going on out there. Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and I can't underscore this enough. What is happening between Ukraine and Russia, or really between the NATO allies and Russia right now, is more important really than pretty much anything else going on the planet. What is happening could very easily move to a major armed confrontation between NATO and Russia. We're talking about the potential use of nuclear weapons, and I don't think that scenario is as unlikely as people think it is. The leftists and liberals and people across the NATO countries seem to think that Putin will not respond, that they can do this with impunity, and that Russia will have no response. And one of the things that I think that they are misunderstanding is how creative other countries can be. They're seeing some of these things as binary options. Well, if we do this, the only option Russia has is to do X. And X is unthinkable because it will cause us to do all sorts of things that will cause them to do certain things. And so because of that, they're not going to do X. Well, first off, that doesn't take into account the Russian mindset. The Russian mindset is very much a persecution mindset. There is this, and this is a broad generalities, and it's not true for everyone. But there is this acceptance of hardship as if it is a part of life. Whereas a lot of Western countries, particularly the United States, there's this idea that we can avoid suffering. We can avoid hard choices. There's always a win. The Russian mindset and literature has deep in its understanding that sometimes there isn't a good choice. Sometimes you are pushed into a corner, and then it's more important to hold to your principles and to your loyalties than it is to hold on to your life. And this is a mindset that kind of mixes a little bit of Asian in with the European thought. And this is something that a lot of Western allies don't understand. And it's scary that they don't understand this, that they think that they can keep pushing Russia and there will never be a consequence. They said that Putin would not invade Ukraine. Now, in the very last weeks, when it became obvious that he was going to invade, they started saying that. But they thought that they could do so much of this stuff without a response from Russia. And they've been terribly, terribly wrong these past 3 years, haven't they? So, what's going down now? All right, so we have this supposed Biden decision, which I'm still not convinced is actually a decision by Biden. And this has allowed other countries, UK, France, and Germany, to also authorize the deep strikes with their weapons. And it's no surprise that Finland and Sweden have just come out this week saying we need to get our people more prepared. Now, some of this stuff was already kind of brewing. They kind of saw some of this stuff on the horizon. You don't print 5.2 million pamphlets, in a week, but they are starting to deliver pamphlets. And let's just say it this way: this is the 5th time since World War II that Sweden has issued these pamphlets, and they're different than the ones previously. Last time they sent them out was 2018 or 2019. And now the ones that are being issued have been rewritten to focus in on preparing the population for World War III. They are very much focused in on preparation for war as opposed to just things that could happen. Donald Trump Jr. has responded to this escalation by the Biden administration, whoever they may be, the anonymous persons. He said this. I'm going to redact one of the words here because it's a word that should not be heard by little ears. The military-industrial complex seems to want to make sure that they get World War III going before my father has a chance to create peace and save lives. Gotta lock in those trillions of dollars. Life be deed. Imbeciles. I probably shouldn't hear that other word either for little years, but you can see that the incoming Trump administration is very frustrated that a major policy decision has been made in contradiction to the recent election. People voted for peace. People voted for negotiation in Europe. And what they got instead was potentially nuclear war. So we got the missile use approval. Zelensky has responded to media requests because he is an actor. See, people forget that. He's a comedy actor, and his stuff wasn't good. He was asked whether they would to comment on the deep strikes into Russia, and he said basically that we don't telegraph these type of attacks. We don't talk about them. We let the missiles speak for themselves, clearly indicating that he intends to launch a major missile strike or missile strikes against Russian targets, and he hopes that that is going to achieve his ends. Now, if you look at his victory plan, one of the core components there is this long-range use of precision-guided munitions from the West to basically take out infrastructure and to basically break the will of the Russian people to keep on fighting. Sort of like the Kursk offensive. He wants to make Russia hurt so that Russia will pull out of Ukraine, or at least negotiate on more attractive terms than what they would get currently. Of course, that's assuming that they don't just hit you back harder. And when you're talking about a country with 5,000 or 6,000 nuclear weapons, they can always hit you back harder. Harder than you ever could. Unless they do something drastic like try to take out Putin or something like that with a long-range missile, which I don't even want to know how Russia would respond to that. I know how the United States would respond to that. If someone took out our president, as much as you may agree or not agree with him at this point, I think the United States would probably turn whatever country did that into a lake of glass. We would wipe that country out, I think. I mean, that's just a guess given our past choices and such. So the fact that Russia with nuclear weapons would not respond to that it seems to be a little far-fetched. All right, so let's talk about this major internet undersea cable that has gone offline in the Baltic Sea. It stretches from Finland to Germany. It's called the Sea Lion 1. Man, nerds clearly named this thing. It's C, the letter, dash Lion 1. Anyway, Sea Lion 1. Some are pointing out the unusual maneuvers of an oil tanker out of St. Petersburg in the Baltic Sea, conveniently right over that cable. Is it potentially possible that this could be accidental? Sometimes if anchors get hung up on undersea cables, that's possible. A lot of these cables do just get laid right down on the floor of the ocean, so, or the sea here. So they may not have any protective coverings other than the shielding on the cable itself. So anchors can cut these things. It's possible. It's not frequent, especially these larger cables. And usually they do get some sort of housing when they're closer to shore. They are apparently trying to troubleshoot the cable right now. We're being told that there's a fault on it, that they haven't yet released that it's been broken. They haven't released where it's broken. They haven't released anything other than the major undersea cable is offline. Now that traffic is being routed through other cables. You know, it's internet, so stuff is slowing down for Finland, but it is still getting around. Now this is just after Russia accused the United States and its allies of potentially targeting undersea cables. Now with the Nord Stream pipeline that went kablooey just mysteriously, someone could ask the question whether this is another United States or its allies trying to pin something else on Russia. It's possible. Is it possible that Russia has, that this is their response to things that they're unhappy with? That's possible too. No word on exactly what's happening there, but I know that people are going to be looking a little more closely at this tanker out of St. Petersburg to ask the question whether it was the ship that actually impacted this cable. Russia has launched major missile strikes on hydroelectric dams, nuclear power plants across Ukraine, as well as other power plants. This is as we just had a snowfall happening across Ukraine. Winter is arrived in Ukraine and it is getting cold, and power has gone out in many areas of Ukraine. Some of these power plants, especially the hydroelectric dams, are being hit in places that have not been hit by missile strikes and drone strikes up till now. One of the concerning things that we're seeing out there is reports of minimal Ukrainian air response. Few intercepts, if any. One of the things that's also been noticed is that Discord went down approximately the same time as the attack. And apparently, people are saying that it appears that this may have suppressed or partially helped suppress Ukrainian air defenses. Ukrainians' defense forces, as well as Russians, apparently do use Discord fairly often. There are plenty of pictures out there of control rooms where they have Discord open so they can do real-time texting with other units and other headquarters and stuff like that. I don't know what they're allowed to communicate on Discord and how reliant any of these forces are on Discord. But the fact that Discord went offline is something that people are saying may have contributed to the failure of the Ukrainian air defense systems. Now, the other option is that that is totally unrelated and that the Ukrainian air defenses have been depleted. If that's the case, we may see more of these strikes happen that basically most of the missiles and drones get through. Because this was a crippling attack, and it took a lot of power plants offline. To put this in context, there are now 9 total nuclear reactors inside Ukraine that are under Ukrainian control. 7 of the 9 yesterday were forced to scram their reactors. So 7 of the 9 reactors had to inject their control rods into the nuclear nuclear reactor to slow the rapidly slow down the nuclear reaction inside the plants and basically take the reactor offline. Now, they can't completely stop the chain reaction inside the reactors, but it slows it down dramatically, reduces the heat, and basically they stop generating steam power like they normally do, and they're both basically focused in on safety and trying to keep these reactors from going critical. Now, the reason why they had to do that was because these air attacks hit the transmission facilities near to the reactors. So basically they cut the power to these nuclear reactors, and so they had to, nuclear reactors produce power, but they also have to bring power in. And whenever they don't have power coming in, it's a safety issue. They can use the power from the power plant to power itself, but that's considered a risky thing. And so whenever they don't have external power, they want to shut down the reactors just in case. Because if something goes wrong with the reactor and the only power it's got going into it is itself, they won't have the power to send in the control rods. They won't have the power to cool the reactor until they can get it stabilized. So they need to scram them immediately. And so that's what happened. This is at 2 of the 3 remaining nuclear power plants across Ukraine. And amongst the 3 power plants, they have a total of 9 reactors. 2 reactors are at the 3rd nuclear power plant, and the other 7 are spread between the 2 power plants that were hit. So major attacks there. We had hydroelectric dams hit. Sometimes they're hitting the dams themselves. We do not have word on major flooding as a result of that, and so that's probably targeting the power components of the hydroelectric dams once again, because that's what they're trying to go after. They don't seem to be trying to flood and submerge large areas of Ukraine, though if Ukraine does massive strikes on Russia, Russia may decide to try to do that. But of course, hydroelectric dams, they're pretty resilient. It's pretty hard to blow a hole in one of these things. And even if you blow a hole in it, it doesn't mean the whole thing's going to come collapsing. You need a lot of explosives to take down one of these hydroelectric dams. It's not an easy thing. Now, the electrical components built into the dam and built next to the dam are much easier targets. A lot of the power units and such like that are oil cooled. You hit one of those things with a missile or a near miss, and a lot of times they can catch fire. If it leaks out the oil, the coolant leaks out, then the thing can have a heat problem, or it can melt down, or it can catch fire that way as well. So the electrical components, even the generators are relatively easy targets compared to the actual structural integrity of these hydroelectric dams. All right, friends, that's what we got latest coming out there. We are super concerned about what's going on, the escalation there. Not only words are going up, but we're also seeing more and more of these cross-border attacks and concerns about whether the Ukrainian air defenses may be crippled, depleted, or may have been temporarily neutralized through Discord or whatever. Hopefully they can get that fixed. And I say that because, hey friends, if you live in the United States, you're on one of these teams, and at some point you're gonna have to start rooting for your team, even if you disapprove of what your team is doing, because you can criticize, but at some point criticism turns into treason. And that's something I've said here on the channel before, is that if this thing goes hot, there's a certain point where you need to shut up and either keep it to yourself, or you need to just go along with what's going on, because there is no backtracking. Once you get into a war, there's really only one solution. You need to win. If it's a slow-burning war where you're not really involved, you can just negotiate your way out of it, okay. But when things turn hot, there's a certain point where there is no going back. The things that the countries have done to each other enough make it impossible to turn around. And criticism and speaking out become a luxury that is from the past. People in the Civil War who criticized President Lincoln and the Union were imprisoned. And those in the Confederacy who questioned the Confederacy were imprisoned. And you go back through basically any war. If you spoke out against World War II, guess what? You ended up in prison. And there were enough people that spoke up against Vietnam War. They were imprisoned or disappeared. This is something that that people need to take to heart. We can speak our mind now, but there may come a point where we need to shut up. And at some point, you need to take care of your families and you need to take care of yourselves. All right? You know, even Gandhi was shut up during World War II. He was for pacifism, but he accepted his forced house arrest, and the British silenced Gandhi during World War II, and that's something that you need to be aware of. All right, we've had freedom of speech here in the United States for a good number of years, but we need to go back a little bit and remember that speech is not always free. Sometimes speech costs you a lot, and sometimes that is too much. All right? If you want to see what happened to all the people that spoke out against the colonialists and the freedom revolutionaries in the Revolutionary War in the United States, they got tarred and feathered, which was a horribly painful and sometimes fatal thing that happened to people for speaking out. Okay? Take those things, ponder them for a moment before you respond and get all upset and bent out of shape. I'm just telling you what history has said, that freedom of speech in wartime has limits, and you do well to know where those limits are. All right, friends, thanks so much for joining with us. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.